So today, I'm starting talking about the digestive system and glucose regulation. That's going to be more in the line of hormones, different chemicals. Okay. Um, this chapter lesson is pretty easy. It's the hormones from endocrine onward. It's really easy. Okay. So let's just start talking about this now. Thinking about eating. Right. So this is going to, of course, a topic of everything. In practicality. It's okay, Drew. I'm not taking real attendance. It's impossible for me to take real attendance. Uh, anyway, what happens to my food after I eat it? Does all the protein in my meat go into my blood? Where in my body does chemical digestion take place? What regurgitation, diarrhea, and why does it happen? Okay, so these are going to be the kind of things I'm going to think about while going along this whole chapter. So, for example, what happens to my food after I eat it? Well, it's going to be broken down, right? As if you're first going to chew it up, right? You're going to chew it up with your teeth, right? And that's going to break it down to smaller bits, right? And when you chew food, there's several reasons why you chew your food besides savoring the food as you swallow it, but it's also to make it easier for you to swallow it so you don't choke on it, right? And it's actually also it makes it a lot easier for your stomach to digest it quicker. So if you were to swallow a larger piece of beef, for example, it takes a longer time for it to digest through your stomach and go into your GI tract. But when you chew your food, it's easier for your whole system to digest. Okay, and then once it reaches your stomach, the gastric juices break it down to smaller components, and smaller components will be small enough to travel through the duodenum. Okay, enters your GI tract, and all the different reabsorption of nutrients occur. Okay, you have further breakdown of components, and then of course whatever's remaining is going to be excreted as fecal matter at the very end. Okay, now does all the protein go into my blood? Well, we'll find out about it. Okay, now where in my blood, my body does digestion take place? We'll talk about that. What is regurgitation, diarrhea? We'll talk about that, but everyone should know what those are already and why does it happen. Okay, now regurgitation is going to be it's the same thing as throwing up. It's just a synonym for that. Okay. Anyway, let's start off with Prader-Willi syndrome. Okay. Now, has anyone heard of this before? This syndrome? Just out of curiosity. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so Prader-Willi syndrome is a genetic disorder. You usually find it with infants starting at the age of 2, give or take. At the age of 2, you'll start to see these symptoms, and basically, uh, children, and they can live into adulthood. Okay, it's not that they can't. They don't. They'll have a a long life. Well, not the longest life, but they'll have a moderately long life. And essentially, what happened is several things happen. First of all, you're gonna have mental, not degradation. I want to say it's gonna be you're you're not development of your mental capacity, so there might be some retardation. Okay, a little bit. All right, as well as you're gonna have some issue with muscle tone. Okay, so so children and of course adults who have this syndrome will have very low muscle tone, so hypotonicity. Okay, and these individuals who have that will feel kind of like a rag doll. There's like that's the kind of how they feel, ragdollish. Okay. They also have they have infertility issues. 99% of individuals who have Prader-Willi syndrome do have they're infertile, and that's because the development of their gonads is not complete until late in adult life. Usually, like without any therapy, there have been stories of women who have this who haven't reached their first period in their into their 30s, or men who never get their voices deepened nor have any facial hair or pubic hair grown until it may not even happen because they secrete any of the estrogen, testosterone level required for puberty to take place, okay, at the appropriate age. But these individuals are infertile because of that. And now, what's the big deal with this? Because really, the focus is the digestive system and us eating and digesting our food, right? So the big thing you see when you look at this child is how obese this boy is, right? Now, the reason why he's obese is because Prader-Willi syndrome has another effect on you. Okay, it affects hormonal secretions, and one of the hormones that it affects is a secretion of something called leptin. Okay, now leptin is produced by your adipose tissue. So remember, your adipose tissue is your fat tissue, right? And when you eat any food, like let's say right now you grab a sandwich, or you make yourself a little egg salad sandwich and you eat it, your brain releases receptors, right? And then it gets detected by your brain and as well as your adipose tissue, and it's going to secrete something called leptin. Now, leptin is a little protein. Protein is a hormone, right? Type of hormone. And it's going to go up to your brain and it's going to tell your brain that you're satiated, okay? So when you eat food and you feel full afterwards, that's because of leptin, okay? Now, Prader syndrome, don't secrete leptin. And if you can't secrete leptin, you're gonna have an issue with feeling satiation, right? You won't feel full. So because you don't feel full, you're gonna be, you will want to eat more, right? Because you're gonna feel hungry all the time, right? That's a big issue, mentally, physiologically, it all works hand in hand together, right? So in result in obesity like this, okay? Now, about this? Well, of course, in labs, we always use mice as the as a model because they're closely related to humans genetically speaking. A lot of things that we do, a lot of experiments that we do on mouse models, they're very, very similar to humans. That's why a lot of drug testing before we go to clinical testing with actual human beings, the first step is to see what the reaction is with mouse. Okay, how do they react? Do they die? Do they recover from whatever disease or infection that they have? Right. So these mice, right? Well, let's look at the mice on the left side. Okay, these two on the left side, circle them. These two, they secrete leptin normally. Okay, so that means that they're gonna feel satiation after they eat. Okay, they have no, so therefore they have the normal average weight for a mouse of their size. Okay, of okay. Now on the right side we have a mouse here. Okay, now this mouse has been most likely genetically altered to have a knockout of the gene that's responsible for synthesizing leptin. Okay, remember, guys, if you remember, okay, the genetic dogma of DNA, right? You go from DNA to RNA, from RNA to proteins, right? DNA has a genetic code, the genes that encodes the information to make each protein. Okay, so this mouse here, the fat one here that you see, likely had that gene that's going to encode for leptin deleted. Okay, by in the lab. Okay, that's possible in the lab. Okay, that's how we do things in a clinical lab. We're researching different therapeutic compounds initially before heading to the human model. Okay, so the mouse ate continuously because it couldn't feel that sensation of fullness from eating food. That's why I got overweight. Okay, is everyone clear so far? So this is why Prader-Willi syndrome could cause extreme obesity. Because if you have that, you're gonna feel hungry all the time. Make sense? Yeah. All right. So let's do a little overview of your GI tract. Okay. Let's see where the thing and a lot of this you went over in anatomy. So this is a good review. So let's just go from the top to bottom. Okay, from the top, we're gonna start with the mouth, right? The first thing we're gonna do is gonna chew our food into bolus, right? So we're gonna bite, chew, and swallow. And this is where, again, chemical digestion occurs. Okay? Initially, okay? Initially, this is where chemical digestion can occur because remember, we have our saliva, right? What is one of the functions of saliva, everyone? Anyone can answer me. One function of saliva. Does anyone know one function of saliva? Yes, it starts to help breaking down food. Exactly. There's another example. They also assist with some bacterial, any bugs, microbes that might come in. It helps with that too. But primarily, it's going to have to do with breaking down food initially when you start chewing it. Pharynx and esophagus is merely for transporting food from the mouth down into your stomach. Okay, so that's going to be the way for the food to between your mouth and stomach, the pharynx and esophagus. Then your stomach, and the stomach is going to convert bolus. Now remember, bolus is the form of food after you chew it, okay? And you swallow it. That's the bolus, okay? And it's going to convert it to something called chyme, okay? And chyme is going to be how broken down the food is once it gets digested by the chemicals in your stomach, aka gastric juices, okay? Have also now the big difference between gastric juices and saliva is the addition of hydrochloric acid, which makes our gastric juices pretty acidic. Okay, and of course it can have mechanical disruption formation of chyme. Okay, now in our small intestines, it's going to exist so that whatever food that we have is going to now exist in the form of chyme exclusively. Okay, and over here you're going to have both chemical and mechanical digestion. Okay, and absorption of nutrients of water. We should know this already. In addition of alkaline fluid. Okay. Now remember, uh, we the pH has to be maintained, and there's a reason why we're going to be adding alkaline fluids. It's aside from other. There's several reasons, but of course one of the reasons is homeostatic application to maintain the equilibrium within our body. Okay. Then thing we're going to enter our large intestine. Okay, and this is where the formation of feces occur. Okay, we're going to observe further. We're going to have more absorbance of electrolytes. Okay, absorb more water, of course. Okay. Of course, we're going to have a lot of bacteria that forms vitamins B and K for absorption. Okay, and of course, we're going to be getting rid of a lot of bacteria like bad bacteria as well, right? We want to get rid of all that toxic stuff. And of course, last not least, we have the rectum and anus, which is just feces, right? And that's how we're going to defecate the fecal matter out of our body. And I want you to look at some accessory organs that has to do with the GI tract. Your teeth, of course, because your teeth can be really important for chewing, right? Tongue is very important for or not, for secreting saliva, right? Then we're gonna have liver, pancreas, secretes various hormones, different enzymes, and of course the salivary glands, okay, which is going to be producing saliva, okay. Now, guys, what's one of for tongues, okay? Why is it important that we can taste food? Just a curious question I want to ask you guys. Why do you think is the importance of tasting food? This is a kind of a tangent, but not really at the same time. There's a reason for it. I have the sensation of taste, and it has a lot of smell. Yeah, that's yeah, Caroline. That's it. It's a very practical reason. The reason why one of the reasons why we're able to smell and to taste things is because of survival instincts, right? You want to make sure you're staying away from harmful substances and towards you want to be able to eat things that you know if it's tasty, usually it means that it's safe for you. Not all the time, okay? There are exceptions, but typically that's the evolutionary path we took, right? Okay. So, how about the second phase? What happens, okay? All right. So, what happens first when we actually have a plate of food, right? Because remember, when we eat food, our body prepared ahead of time. Physiologically, our body is prepared, it's primed to start digesting food. Okay, and what's the reason for that? So remember, I mean, not remember. Everyone knows this, right? When you go to a restaurant, right, and you smell really tasty food, right, it gets you really hungry and you start salivating. Correct, guys? When you start smelling, right? Yeah. So that's the right. That's the function of why when it have. I mean, smell. The sense of smell is survival for a lot of reasons, but it's also it helps you to get ready to eat something, right? So the reason why that happens, why you start to feel hunger and your salivary gland starts to secrete saliva more, is because you have some parasympathetic stimulation, right? And it's gonna be caused by smell, thoughts of food intake, right? Even thinking about tasty food can do this to you, right? And then, of course, what's going to happen? Sensory affirmation. So your parasympathetic stimulation of the cranial nerve 10 begins salivation, hydrochloric acid secretion from parietal cells in the stomach, and increases motility per cell. So that means that you're going to make your gastric juices more acidic. So whatever's in your stomach, you're going to create a more acidic environment in your stomach to prepare ahead of time for intake of food. Okay, and of course, sympathetic cholinergic. So that means what this means, they're gonna have salivation, lacrimation, urination, digestion, and defecation. Okay, so these are the five different things that happens during the cholinergic parasympathetic reaction. Okay, so of course you have sensory mental. Let me just get my marker out. So, right. First thing, you have sensory and mental input. So the sensory is going to be actual smelling something, okay? The mental input will be you thinking about something very delicious, and then it's between vagus nerve and your sympathetic nerve, right? And it's going to travel. So your vagus nerve is going to travel down, your vagus nerve innervates your stomach, right? So it's going to go towards the stomach, and it's going to tell your stomach to start secreting some hydrochloric acid, right? And this happens by means of the parietal cells. Okay, these are the actual cells that will secrete hydrochloric acid. Okay, and increases motility. Okay, now remember, what this means is that your stomach, one of the functions of the stomach when you start to actually eat, that it has to churn the food, right? So it's kind of I don't want yeah I always think about it this way ever since I was a student, kind of like a witch's cauldron kind of, that you're mixing whatever the components into that soupy mix, right? So the soup, the broth component of your stomach would be hydrochloric acid secretion, but then the actual different solids in the soup would be whatever you're eating, right? And it's going to be churning it and mixing it around to make it easier to break down, right? And that's all really important, right? You need to be able to break it down even further once it reaches the stomach, so that you eventually enter through your digestive tract, and you can have maximum amount of reabsorption of nutrients. Okay. For parasitic colony components, just know the five. Okay, you guys have memorized these, and we'll go through these later in a little bit more detail. Salivation, lacrimation, urination, digestion, and defecation. Okay, this has all to do with the cholinergic response. Okay, all right. So let's talk about a little bit anatomy. Okay, just a little bit of anatomy, a little flavor of anatomy, not too much because you guys should know this already. Okay, so about the layers. Okay, and I want you guys to remember the layers. What happens? What's most superficial? Okay, and what's most deep? Okay, look at the mucosa. Okay, so let's look over here. So we can actually circle it right up here. This is here. Then you have your mucosa. So remember, so your mucosa is going to be in the most center, meaning it's the most deep. Okay? So when you look at your GI tract, the mucosa is the deepest part. Okay? Then you have the submucosa, which is more superficial, or this is a whitish ring around. Okay? And now your submucosa is going to be adjacent to a lot of veins and also, of course, different nerves. Okay? For example, the plexus of the Meissner, these are all nerves. Okay? So this yellow color in here is all nerves. Okay? So your submucosa is adjacent to that. Okay? Of course, the third thing, the third more superficial is going to be muscularis. Okay? And it's going to have some smooth muscle. Okay? Such as your muscle and your longitudinal muscles. Okay, remember your intestines, collectively your intestines of your GI tract, they all have smooth muscles, and your smooth muscles are involuntary, right? So the only voluntary muscle they have in your whole GI tract is going to be your rectal muscle. Okay, when you actually excrete fecal matter. Okay, and then last we have serosa right here, epithelial layer of it, serosa. It's going to be epithelial layer and as well as some connective tissue. So it's going to be protecting everything that's contained within it. Okay. Is everyone okay, keep it up so far? So remember, so this is going to be, so this here, remember, this is most deep. Okay. Your mucosa layer is most deep. Most, okay. Oh my goodness. This one is killing me. Most deep. Okay. All right. So I want you guys to know this from this particular slide, okay? I'm not going to get any more detail because this is not an anatomy class. You should understand the anatomical structure of this from the previous semester. Okay, let's see what happens when food is starting to get mixed with saliva as soon as you start chewing your food, okay? So this is the first step. Remember, you're gonna eat some food, right? It's gonna go in your mouth and you start chewing it. So let's first talk about what the pH is, okay? Now, remember I told you before the big difference between your stomach, one of the big differences between your stomach and your mouth is the pH level. In your stomach, it's gonna reach really low pH levels because of the hydrochloric acid that's being secreted by your parietal cells. Okay? So over here it's being more or less. It's sort of neutral between 6.8 to 7. Okay? Now, about 99.5% of it is water, okay? And the salivary, you're gonna have and salivary amylase, okay? Now, the salivary amylase is what begins starch digestion in the mouth, okay? And it's actually inactivated by low pH of the salt of the stomach. So that means that when you're not eating anything, you're not smelling anything good, or you're not thinking about food, like delicious food, okay? Or when you're thinking about it, okay? The low pH stomach, have high pH in the stomach. Okay. Now, um, yes, okay. I'm just making sure that it's consistent. Okay. Now, this should be activated. But it's okay. So the salivary amylase begins starch digestion in the mouth. Okay. That's remember starch is when we eat like potatoes, right? It's a polysaccharide. Now we have lingual lipase. Now lingual lipase, like you could tell by the name of here. Lipase refers to lipids. Lingual refers to mouth. Okay, and it's activated by stomach acid. And what this does is, as you can tell by the word lipase, it's an enzyme that digests fat when it arrives in the stomach. Okay, so this means that it requires low pH for this to happen. Okay, the stomach acid is going to reduce the pH, right? Now, mucus. So what does mucus do? Okay, and you know this is gonna be kind of consistent with our when you see mucus in our body, typically they all serve a similar purpose. Okay, it's for protection, lubrication, that kind of thing. Well, just like those areas, the mucus, right? The mucus is gonna be it's gonna bind, lubricate food for swallowing. So whatever in your throat, all the mucosal layer is gonna be very important for lubricating food for swallowing. So it doesn't hurt you. It's gonna be easier to slip through. Okay. Then we have lysozyme. So in saliva. Okay. And this is an enzyme that kills bacteria. Remember, I mentioned to you guys one of the functions of saliva is it also gets rid of some microbes. So this is the exact enzyme. You have lysozyme that does that job. Now, it's not gonna kill every bacteria, okay? It'll kill off a lot of bacteria, but not the nasty ones, okay? Not the most nasty ones in everyday life. Additionally, immunoglobulin. Now, immunoglobulin A, guys, another way to say this is called IgA. Okay? Now, IgA. So this is gonna be this is IgA. Okay, and it's written like this. Okay. I don't know if anyone's seen this before. So you have IgA, IgE, IgG, right? There's a lot of different immunoglobulins, and these are all secreted by your immune system. Okay, and this particular one here, is an it inhibits bacterial growth. Speaking of immunoglobulins, okay, you remember when I taught you guys about the mast cells and your lungs? That when you get those when you have the asthma or maybe COPD. Do you guys remember that? Do you remember how when you have asthma, one of the side effects is that you're gonna have a lot of mast cells in the layer. Well, mast cells are actually produced by one of the immunoglobulins. Specifically, IgE, so immunoglobulin E is the one responsible for regulating mast cells. Just a little, just to kind of connect the dots somewhat. Okay. Now, last but not least, okay, the saliva also has electrolytes such as sodium, potassium, chlorine, phosphate, bicarbonate ions, etc., etc. Okay, so you have a variety of electrolytes in your saliva. Okay, so these are all the different components I want you guys to know of your saliva. Okay, yeah, this pH here with water. Okay, you have salivary amylase, lingual lipase, mucus, lysozyme, IgA, and electrolytes. Clear on that? Okay. Okay. So let's talk about what happens when you actually start to swallow. Okay. And this is called deglutition. Okay. So what happens during swallowing? All right. So this is going to be the swallowing center in your brain. Okay. Is oblongata. Okay. And what this does is help you coordinate muscle movements to push food. Bolus. Remember, bolus is the form of the food when you chew it. Okay. And it's going to push it into the esophagus. All right. And remember, this is gonna be voluntary, right? You consciously swallow food, so it's gonna be regulated by your medulla oblongata, okay? And once bolus, remember guys, bolus is the chewed up food, okay? I'm gonna reiterate it a few times, okay, so make sure everyone keeps up with that, okay? It passes to the oropharynx, okay? And at this point, once it passes into the oropharynx, your parasympathetic system takes over, okay? And this means that there's going to be some involuntary muscle movement. Okay, remember your trachea, your esophagus, these different areas of your system, they have smooth muscle lining, okay, around it. Okay, but in your oropharynx, okay, it's going to move through something called peristalsis. Okay, now peristalsis is kind of a rhythm, a wave, so to speak, of longitudinal muscle contractions. So it's a certain rhythm of muscle contractions that occurs in your oropharynx that allows the food, the bolus, to be further pushed downward into your stomach, okay, towards your stomach. And this will continue until the material reaches the colon, actually, okay? The esophagus itself, gravity itself is going to move food into the stomach, okay? Now, so what this means is the actual gravity force pushing downward on your body, right? And then it's going to be working together with peristalsis, right? So now, if gravity, if I have a question for you, and I want you to take note of this, okay? A little bit of a little bit critical thinking, a little bit, okay? Why is it important that we have peristalsis when gravity itself is a lot more efficient at moving foods towards our stomach? Why do we have peristalsis if esophagus is capable, if the food in the esophagus is easily moved through with gravity? I want everyone to think about that. When you're maybe sitting down on the couch or laying down, right? If you may choke, okay? Peristalsis helps a bit with that. You do want to have, and the thing is, the gravity pull isn't foolproof, so you kind of want to back up. Okay, you want to have something that's continuously moving all the material in your oropharynx. Okay, now in the esophagus itself. Okay, guys, when the gravity moves food past the peristalsis. Okay, this is the gravity. When you rely on gravity, okay, I want you to focus on gravity. This is the reason why your parents not to eat all laying down. Okay, peristalsis it helps, it does help, but it's not like it's not the best. It's not the best at doing it. It's kind of there, but we're mostly relying on gravity. Okay. Oh, another example. You don't want to eat when you're upside down, right? Do you all eat while upside down, or have before? Is it comfortable? I mean, it's not going to be comfortable, right? And you could throw up your food if you eat upside down. Uh, so make sure you understand that, okay? Gravity is going to play a very important role and actually getting our food down to our stomach, okay? Is it ever okay so far? Confusing anyone yet? It's complicated yet. It shouldn't be complicated to begin with. For me right now, I just want you guys to understand the different terms that I'm saying. And here's a summary of everything, a picture summary of everything we spoke about. Okay. So of course, the very first thing that happens is that we're gonna swallow our food. And remember, the first thing that's gonna happen is we're gonna have a chemical digestion caused by our saliva, right? We're gonna have different types of enzymes such as lysosomes for bacteria, right? We're gonna have different lipases for fats, right? And kind of work together to start digesting the food. And then as well as we're gonna have the mechanical chewing of the food. So you're gonna have mechanically break down our foods, right? As well as chemically. So it's both ways, right? And then after that, we're gonna have a voluntary swallow of the food, and that's gonna be regulated by a medulla oblongata. Remember, swallow our food, and it's gonna travel past the oropharynx down into the esophagus, and that's gonna be relying on both peristalsis as well as gravity, right? So over here, peristaltic constriction here. So here, this is an actual image of what happens, okay? Here you have the upper esophagus, okay? And when you see this darkening here, this means that there's a constriction of muscle, all right? And this is gonna be due to the peristaltic constriction, okay? And now this here, this whiting here, is our bullous. Okay, and that's the matter actually passing down the esophagus. It's going downward due to gravity as well as constriction. Okay, and but not least, it's going to be entering our stomach. Okay, and then in the stomach, it's going to start undergo further chemical digestion due to gastric juices. Okay, so gastric phase. Okay, so the digestion of proteins. All right. Now, how do we start to digest proteins during the gastric phase? Okay, well, take my marker. We have something called gastrin. Okay, now gastrin is a hormone, protein, and this is produced specifically by our enteroendocrine G cells in our pyloric glands. Okay, and it travels through blood. Uh, Guys, I have a question for you. What's gastrin regulated by, you think? I should sorry. What is pyloric gland? What are the pyloric glands regulated by, you think? I'm sorry. I was asking, what do you think regulates your pyloric gland? Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so I was more referring to your brain involvement, but it's fine. That's absolutely fine, Carolina. Uh, oh, I do want to go uh, to everyone that's here. Okay, the gastrin itself, not gastrin, the pyloric, uh, the pyloric gland is also very important in producing mucus for the mucous lining in our stomach. Okay, remember, mucus is protecting. It serves to lubricate and protect all of our innards. Okay, so the pyloric gland does function in that, right? And that's why. And I do want to add this, and this is important for you guys to know. Okay, is everyone aware of Helicobacter pylori? Yes. Yeah. So Helicobacter, all right. One of the things it does, if you remember, I think I went over this, unless I'm mixing up my microbiology lecture. What Helicobacter does, it actually penetrates into the mucus, right? It penetrates through the mucosal layer of your stomach, and eventually, this whole thing, the bacteria itself, as well as what it, among other things, will cause stomach ulcers. Now, why do stomach ulcers occur when you have a Helicobacter infection? Well, for one, it does secrete toxins. Once it starts to infect you and penetrate into your host cell lining your stomach, it does secrete certain toxins, but additionally, because it penetrates through the mucosal layer, it does make a little cut, so to speak, into the mucus and allows the acidic environment of your stomach to start harming your the cells lining your stomach. Okay, so the mucus serves to protect it. If your mucus, any kind of mucus, is any kind of damaging in the mucosal layer, you cause some some of that all those ulcers to occur, okay, in your stomach, the acidic environment, because it will burn your actual cells, okay? The mucus itself will really protect our stomach. Guys, a tangent from kind of, but it's still very important, and I want everyone to know that, okay? Because it's a really nice application, clinical, right? You want to be a little bit aware of the different microbes that kind of attack various areas of your body, especially your stomach, because a lot of infections that you see especially in first world countries, well, not first world countries, third world countries, and a lot of common things you see with diarrhea is something you have orally transmitted. You consume some kind of contaminated food. It happens, right? So I thought it was pretty important to mention. Now, okay, so it works through a positive feedback loop, okay, which accelerates protein digestion, okay? Now remember, guys, positive feedback loop. That means that gastrin itself is going to cause more gastrin to be secreted, okay, by the enteroendocrine G cells, okay? So your pyloric glands via interaction with gastrin itself will further secrete more gastrin. Understand? Remember, so remember, positive feedback. This means that gastrin itself is going to go back around to the pyloric glands and further enhance further synthesis and secretion of these of this hormone, okay? And it could actually go back up to the pituitary, all right? Potentially up to your hypothalamus, maybe, okay? But towards your pyloric glands. And then as if it digest, okay, pH lowers to below 2, okay? Now, when it reaches below 2, it's going to inhibit parietal cells and G cells, okay? And this is important, guys, okay? Remember, parietal cells are what secretes your hydrochloric acid. Once it reaches 2, it's acidic enough to start digesting the foods that you eat, okay? If you make it any more acidic than that, you could potentially burn your stomach, even with the mucosal lining. If you have an overly acidic stomach, it's still dangerous, okay? So that's why this low pH is so important. It needs to inhibit this, okay? As well as your G cells, okay? So it's gonna both inhibit gastrin as well as the acidity. It's going to inhibit further acidity of your stomach. Okay, and of course, low pH determines gastric secretions when stomach is heavy. Okay, that's all you from this particular slide. Okay. The way this happens, so well, I should mention too that this communication here, okay, happens between your vagus nerve again is be a lot of this is parasympathetic. Okay, it's gonna work with your long vagal reflex, and it's gonna be how you have some sensory fibers as well as some motor fibers in your stomach, okay? And what's gonna happen is during the digestion of proteins and as well as other foods, you're gonna have the churning occurring, okay, in your stomach. So I'll go into more detail on that next class. So tomorrow I'll go into more detail on that. It was just like kind of like a really sloppy, quick preview of it. All right. So is everyone clear? All